Okay, welcome everyone.
This meeting is being recorded.
All right, good to know. This is a conversation that I've been excited to invite others in or to carry with greater intentionality for a really long time. I met Claire like a year and a half ago, and she just really brought so many insights into the role of community art, and it was really just a revelation. And the more that I've learned about it, as I've simultaneously been learning about bioregionalism and the big ideas of bioregionalism, I've just seen that community art can play such an important role in all of this. It can really hold the center, and so we're going to get into that a bit today. So if I have to forgive me, I forgot to pull my notes up. I got so excited to see you all. I just jumped into chatting mode. So we're about to kick off a big conversation. And as people like Tila and Christine Palafax can say, this is one that's already happening. The conversation of community art and its role in cultural development. But we feel that it's also central to bioregional learning and adaptation. And by framing it within that particular story, we are sensing very strongly that it can take on greater importance and more clearly so. And so today, we're hoping just to lay the foundation for this, just to dip our toes into these waters. We'll start out with a small exploration of why this might be important. And for that, I'm going to pass it over to Claire, who knows a thing or two about community art, having been an organizer of community art projects, as well as a deep thinker about the role of community art in culture for decades. So with that, I'll pass it over to you, Claire.
Benji, I just want to say a huge thank you because, I haven't always felt that I could communicate this well, and Benji has just been there holding my hands and trying to make this happen. So thank you. So I wanted to start off with a quote from John Seely Brown, who's an evolutionary biologist, because I think it kind of helps to capture some of what we're going to be sharing. And and he called it "Seeing the Invisible, Conversation Matters." It's never enough to just tell people about some new insight. Rather, you have to get them to experience it in a way that evokes its power and possibility. Instead of pouring knowledge into people's heads, you need to help them grind a new set of eyeglasses so they can see the world in a new way. And I thought that just, it was helpful also to bring it from a completely different field because it underpins where we're coming from. So the term community art can mean different things to different people. To many, it's a way of pointing to art that is produced locally by members of a community. There is little contradiction when this kind of art is bought and sold and even objectified. There's nothing inherently wrong with this form of art, except when it is reduced to such a narrow understanding of art by funding structures and the academy. And that's most people have, when I speak to people about art, that's kind of a lot of what comes up. Another form of community art refers to the creative artifacts that emerge from community processes. This form of art is very much tied to dynamic living processes and thus needs to be understood as less about the artifact and more about a way of coordinating a community's understanding of itself. Commodifying this form of art makes no sense because its true value is held by the people of a particular place at a particular time. I first became aware of the absurd Waitiko nature of this way of viewing sacred art as objects that could be extracted during the massive famine that hit North and Central Africa in the mid-1980s. And at that time, I was a teen growing up in South Africa. As whole villages succumbed to the ravages of famine, they sold precious ceremonial objects to the predatory buyers who arrived by the truckload into South Africa, selling rare masks and other ceremonial garb for a pittance. Having studied African art and anthropology, I knew enough to know that these aesthetically pleasing pieces were being admired for their beauty with little understanding around the fact that these objects were meaningless outside of the context of their stories, and those given the honor and privilege of wearing them. Instead, these art pieces were essentially reduced to decontextualized, beautiful objects. I realized then that when art becomes objectified, it loses its contextual grounding. Instead of honoring the relationships that gave them meaning and life, this art was only being valued as a dead, static artifact. It is the second understanding of community art that I'll be focusing on in this workshop. So I'd like to show you how it can help us understand who we are collectively and how that affects our ability to work together more cohesively and cooperatively. Commonly recognizable symbols that are anchored to a place can become powerful touchstones for people because they elicit an emotional embodied response that is also held by others in the community. Celebrating and honoring these sacred relationships through art helps people to feel a sense of belonging to something bigger than themselves. In this way, community art can help to hold the center for bioregional learning. And I would really like to help to do that in a more embodied way than just talking. And so I would really like to invite you into a meditation that will help to get us into a different way of just arriving. So let's jump into a meditation that I've prepared that might help us begin opening up and feeling into our bodies and expressing ourselves. And as you're guided through this meditation, pay attention to how your body feels to the images, colors, textures, sounds, smells, symbols, and other features that come up for you. And so now I'd like to invite you on a short journey. It's a little bit different as a meditation because there's lots that I'm asking you to just suspend your where you normally are. Do you think you can, for a few short minutes, let go of the things that might be holding you back from just letting go and trusting me, your storyteller? Can you let go of your inhibitions, preconceived ideas, and allow me to lead you into a place where you might find some missing parts of you that you didn't even know were missing? If you're ready, I invite you to wiggle yourselves in your seat till you get comfortable, or stand up and hold on to the back of your chair if that's how you feel more at ease. Close your eyes or soften your gaze and take a deep breath. Notice how your chest fills out and then exhale. Fill your lungs and exhale again. And do that 3 more times. While you do, pay attention to how your body knows when to take the next breath and then release. Notice how you do not have to be in control of this process. You are simply being asked to pay attention. In your mind's eye, start taking in your surroundings as I start to paint a picture of where you are. You've had a difficult day and feel different emotions rolling over you in unpredictable ways, leaving you feeling overwhelmed and in need of space. You can't focus and eventually decide to put on a jacket and head outside for a walk. It's early fall and the leaves on the trees are just beginning to turn, and a slight breeze with a tinge of cool in the air brushes over your cheeks and hands. As you make your way away from the possible interruption of other people towards the area that feels quieter and less full of distractions, you notice a beautiful red-tinged leaf on the ground. It catches your attention and you stoop to pick it up. It is perfectly intact with colors that range from deep green through to golden with bright red edges. A single leaf whose photosynthesizing job is done and is no longer required by its tree. A life spent. Your mind recently has been wondering to some of life's bigger questions. Today, this leaf has prompted the question, does life end when you stop being useful for your expected purpose? As you hold this delicate, beautiful reminder of the changing of the seasons, a powerful realization washes over your whole body. This is not merely a tree part, no longer useful and being discarded by the mother tree it belonged to. Unless it is removed from this place, it will continue its connection to place as it breaks down and becomes the nutrients that the tree and surrounding life require. As you notice the connection of relationships from just this single leaf, something peaceful washes over you. And take a moment. As you notice what that feels like in your body, pay attention to the effortlessness of how all these complex relationships self-organize with very little, if any, external intervention. Your whole body has started to relax. Take a moment to feel how that feels. You experience a profound sense of your own interconnection to the whole cycle of life. Notice what that feels like. As you continue walking, you come to a clearing. You look across and notice a prominent natural feature of the land. Take a moment to notice this powerful presence, its shape, color, what it would look like if you were to reach out your hand and touch it. Though you have seen this landscape feature many times before, somehow today feels different. Today, you felt it enter your body in a way that it has become part of you, and you have become part of it. Notice where you are feeling this most intensely in your body. If you had to express through dance what you are feeling, what would that look like? Are you smiling, exhilarated and full of energy, calm? Or are your emotions complicated and difficult to understand? Sit with these emotions. Consider your connection to the sacred being whose existence began billions of years ago. As you stay present to what is surfacing in you, notice whether your relationship to this place feels different. Is this a feeling specific to this place, or is it something you might feel anywhere? As we come to the end of this meditation, and before we open our eyes to join each other, consider anything that came up for you that you might wish to cultivate further. Also, pay attention to what might no longer be serving you and you'd like to let go of. When you are ready, open your eyes so that you can acknowledge the others here sharing the space with you. If you feel so called, put your hands together, slightly bow in their direction, and call out the greeting, Namaste. When we say the Sanskrit word Namaste, we are borrowing from the Hindu tradition to convey the energy and respect of the Namaste prayer in a concise way. I'm going to read that now. I honor the place in you in which the whole universe resides. I honor the place of love, light, and peace. When you are in that place in you, and I am in that place in me, we are truly one. Namaste. So thank you everyone for joining me on that journey of imagining in such an embodied way. I wanted to use it as a primer to bring us into our bodies. And this is one of the things about being in a digital space, is really having to use our imaginations more. So switching gears slightly, and as we move on to the next part of this workshop, I'd like to invite you to take a moment to think about what might elicit a sense of home, belonging, or a sense of connection to what is meaningful to you. And while you do that, I'm going to hand it to Benji to the next stage. Over to you, Benji.
Yeah, thank you, Claire. Yeah, that was a beautiful meditation. I feel like I went somewhere, definitely. Felt something, definitely. And so hopefully you all did as well. With that, I think it's time for us to interact with one another a little bit, to express ourselves a bit after the inspiration we might be feeling, the embodiment we might be feeling. We're going to set up breakout rooms, and it's going to be in pairs. And we are going to invite you to share with another person and listen deeply to the other person as you both explore what home or a sense of wholeness feels like to you. And if you can, try to think of metaphors, images, symbols, landscape features, totemic animals, anything that really helps you to connect to place, really helps you to invite place into the conversation and bring it in as maybe even a living entity. And then we'll come back together and we'll reflect for about 10 minutes on the patterns that did emerge. And I'll be organizing those and we'll be reflecting on those together briefly. And before I set up those breakout rooms, I'm curious if there are any questions or comments before we do so. Is there any more orienting that we can do for anybody, or are people feeling ready? Christine, did I see your hand? Yeah, Christine, over to you.
Claire, right at the moment when you were describing whatever the second item in the environment was, the sound and everything froze up. So I don't know what we were reaching out to touch. I'm curious to know what it was.
Oh, okay. It was just a prominent landscape feature. And because, yeah, some of us have mountains, some of us have other things, and I didn't want to name those. I wanted you to imagine what it was in your landscape.
Thank you.
Okay, so I've got 8 breakout rooms set up. It is going to assign them, Zoom is going to assign them automatically. And so I'm hitting create. If we have somebody join us late, there may be a room of 3, but I'll probably just have them join the room that I'm in. Open all rooms now, and we'll see you soon. It's going to be 15 minutes. Record on the computer. Okay. Well, I hope you guys had some rich conversations. We are going to take about 10 minutes, and I'd love to hear from people, their reflections on what emerged, patterns that emerged. I'm going to go ahead and jot things down, images, symbols that are showing up, and we can kind of reflect together to see if we can find some patterns. So I want to just invite someone to kick us off.
Well, I can.
That'd be great. Yeah.
Yeah, I was with Elizabeth, and wow, we had such an incredible conversation about well, being in places like forest, where and I just wrote down some of the words, and it just warm trees, musty smell, overhanging branches, womb-like. And then that kind of went into how that started to feel like that there's like a personal shift that actually happens in our bodies. And we were both reflecting how very similar that was for both of us, that it's sensual, almost feeling kind of like a caress, and that it feels like a sacred place and a real able to be present in a way that doesn't mean that we have to explain ourselves to anyone, and that sort of that feeling that comes over is has a kind of aliveness, and it's the it has a spontaneity. You can't make it happen, but it's only as it happens, it's the recognizing that it's happening, that's what feels like the gift. Yeah, so not having to control anything, it's something that sort of just feels very peaceful and alive inside. So yeah, that was what was coming up for both of us, and we were both bouncing off of each other on that.
Okay, so I just posted the symbols that I heard so far. Would anybody like to add some reflections? Christine, you know.
It's easier to wave my fingers than try to find the raise hand icon. So I was partnered with Chad, and when he was sharing his experience of home, he started sharing such cool words. I started writing them down because I thought this is the vocabulary of home. So I wanted to share those words too. Okay, so here goes. Feeling oriented to the seasonality. Dynamic, alive, attuned, part of the continuum, not disconnected from the rest. Archetypes within the wheel of seasonality. The natural world is a home rather than something we try to get away from. A sense of belonging, and even rituals arising from that. So those are Chad's really cool words. I think I'll type those in the chat.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, I've also typed them out. Christine, if you'd like, I can just paste the 4 symbols.
Okay.
And you can add to them if you want, or
okay.
So we've got the symbols that Claire added, and then Chad. And we've got about 8 more minutes, if anybody else would like to share before we jump into the next section of the workshop. Anyone? Megan.
Well, one of the things we found ourselves reflecting on was water and the collection of water from the headwaters and collecting in small parts and dripping moss all the way down to sort of major rivers and watersheds in the ocean. So that was a big thing that we pictured and bounced back and forth on. And we also were very, I noticed a big difference between connection to landscape and then connection to people, and they don't always go together in the same place. And there's a certain kind of frustration, or that's something I'm trying to figure out at the moment, and I know others are too. So
Yeah, that seems really important. Bioregional walks, one thing to do to connect those two, however temporarily. Anybody else want to share? Jan, and then Niels. I think I saw Jan go just a split second before you, Niels.
Yes, in that disconnection, the disconnection between scientific data organized education and earth-oriented education, like permaculture versus ecological restoration at a master's level, like the difference between learning that arises and is accountable to the earth versus that which comes from a more of a top-down, cerebral, quantifiable learning.
I said learning from the earth. Is that, would you like to add to that, Jan? Or edit that somehow? And then we'll go over to Niels.
Yeah, I just love, Benji, how when you brought up, like, as simple as like being at home in a place where your dog is, because it's such like a symbol of spontaneity and purity, this pureness, this rawness, and it's like always there for, I'm speaking for our conversation, but it's like always there for us, and it's always, waiting for us, and it's like such a it's always receiving us with so much joy. And yeah, I was saying that I often go to like this nearby abandoned airfield and just observe how dogs are like, running as fast as they can together with each other. And that is just such an embodiment of joy for me. And it makes me feel joyful too, to just witness that. Yeah, and then another thing that feels really present for me is being at home, at an estuary as a symbol for this sort of place of becoming where two bodies that they're both same and other sort of meet and mingle. And I feel like there is something about building one's home there as in not being close. I mean, being right at the edge where there's new possibilities of the vastness of the ocean, but also the sort of streaming river that flows into it that has its own history and its own, meandering way of moving through the world that I find very striking to my imagination. And there's something about being at home or belonging to an estuary that feels very alive within me at this moment in my life. So thank you.
Thank you, Niels. I think that what you just shared speaks so well to the story of place, where we are opening ourselves up to new possibilities while appreciating the intersection with what already exists. I think that you articulate that so well, and you want that so much, it sounds to me. And so I just added what I said about pets. And one thing I wanted to add is they're childlike, not childish. And I think that makes me feel at home when I'm with people who are being childlike. I always enjoy that. And so I want to give maybe opportunity for one more person to share before we reflect really briefly on whether we saw patterns emerge. And then I'm going to hand it over to Claire to wrap this particular section up. There's something she wanted to say. Does anybody else want to share? Or should we go ahead and open up the chat and look for patterns for a minute? Yeah.
I will share a little bit.
How do you pronounce your name? Kayla?
Kayala.
Kayala. Thank you. Yeah, that'd be great.
Great. Yeah, I just I really enjoyed the conversation that we had, and something that I was touched by that is about homecoming and the salmon was partly a sign that some children had made at for this commemoration of the dam coming out on the white salmon here where I live, and the sign said, "Welcome home, salmon," and it was really touching, like in multiple ways for me. And when I remembered it in this context, and I've traced a bit my own ancestry in different ways, towards where I've come from in different ways, and there's sort of this sense of how the salmon is this kind of like the way that relating with that upstream flow and that kind of against the odds returning kind of way, that for me and was reflected with my partner in that conversation, that dialogue, that the sense of like returning to nature ways, returning to the nurturing, the mother as earth as mother and earth as lover, and like the stewardship and the care and all that. So it was a beautiful things. I did want to bring voice to some of that into the space.
Yeah, I really like that. And so I wrote, feeling home by connecting to indigenous animals, since we've lost our indigeneity, since we've been so removed from that. It's just such a foreign concept for so many of us. We can connect to it in some way by connecting with the animals who were never removed from place. I love that idea. So thank you for that. And so I wonder if we want to take just a minute, not spend a whole lot of time here, but if people want to just scroll through the chat, and if you notice any patterns, just go ahead and unmute yourself and shout them out. And then in 1 minute, I'll hand it over to Claire and she'll wrap this section up. I'm seeing presence twice, present moment. Spontaneity.
Lots of references to water.
Being present in an embodied way. Claire said that. Small to large.
Aliveness.
Aliveness. River as life. Claire said aliveness again. Yeah.
Connecting.
Yeah, Richard. Richard, did you want to say something?
Oh, sorry. Oh, I said connecting.
Oh, connecting. Yep, connecting. Yeah, I thought you said, can I? And then I wondered if there was another Zoom glitch on my mind. Okay, well, thank you all. Thank you for participating in that. That was fun. I learned something. And over to you, Claire.
Yeah, I would just love to just let you just kind of think about what has just happened. We've kind of stirred the waters a little bit, and all this amazing stuff started to kind of surface, and nothing that any one of us could have come to by ourselves. There's a kind of being able to see what's coming up as we just went into just one area, and just to notice what rich fodder that is for the next stage of a creative process, and how that becomes the building blocks for the next stage of being able to create. So I'm going to hand over to Benji and then take you through some examples of how some of that can manifest into another stage.
Okay, thanks, Claire. So I'm going to share something. I'm going to read something, actually. It'll probably take about 3 minutes. It's something that I wrote a while back about bioregional learning centers in a workshop that I gave. And since this workshop is titled Community Art for Bioregional Learning, I wanted to bring that seeing, that understanding, that exploration into the conversation more explicitly as well. I've changed a few things about this, but I think it really can provide some fodder as we think about how community art can hold the center and be vital scaffolding for bioregional learning. So here goes. I want to preface this by saying that we're talking about, and when we're talking, what I'm referencing is bioregional learning. What we're talking about is very complex. It's very subtle, and if applied well, it will result in very different ways and depths of learning together as humans on our landscape, within our bioregion, with our communities. It's not so important that we have a clear conceptual understanding of bioregional learning in the very beginning. What's more important is that we feel the potency of learning together and learning how to learn together in ways that increase the health and resilience of local landscapes and of our communities, of our relationships. So how can we experience the wisdom of learning in ways that are highly integrated, cooperative, build relationships, and are guided by and in sync with the landscape's functions and patterns of expression? How can we experience that? And before we begin to try to explore how we experience that, I will give some sense of the complexity involved, because what we're talking about here is so much more than an innovation or an iteration on our current systems of education. But to reflect on those a moment, those current systems prepare us for a globalized industrial economy, one that is profoundly disconnected from local ecologies and from reality in a very fragmenting and destructive way. For one thing, that disconnection has allowed for the idea of unlimited growth to go unchecked, a certain ecological blindness that has led to our planetary crisis to overshoot. And so returning back to bioregional learning, it's about nothing short of learning how to learn as people representing a landscape, very different, of coordinating our learning together. This is about understanding the cultural and ecological histories of place and how those stories arrive into the present, that is story of place. This is about rediscovering and re-embodying into our local context, then adapting from there through cooperation, integration, intention, and holism. So pro-social has a big role there. This is about forming learning processes where everyone throughout the community participates throughout their entire lives. This is about forming learning processes where theory is not isolated. It is dynamically connected to practice in an ongoing way. This is about forming learning processes that are part of local governance, that are integral in the decisions we make as communities, and that guide flows of life-giving resources to where life needs them most. And maybe this is beginning to provide a sense of the complexity involved in bioregional learning. It is a big, organic, beautiful mess. I say bring it on. And how might community art play along? How might it hold the center for all that I just mentioned, all that I just shared? How might it guide these organic and place-based learning processes? How might it bring aliveness to that? And I'm all wrapped up with my little description of bioregional learning. So I'm going to pass it back over to Claire, and she's going to share some a little bit more about community art and bioregional learning through some projects themselves. So over to you, Claire.
Thanks, Benji. I'd like to show you some examples, and I'm also really happy that Tila is going to be sharing as well, because she's just, the stuff she's been involved in is some of the most amazing projects that have inspired me. And I just wanted to give you a bit of a sense of the wide range of possibilities, and know that like it's only just like touching the surface. There's barely, there's so much more. It's hard to know what to leave out. But what is essential to all these projects is that in one form or another, the people from that community see something of themselves reflected in the art. In that way, community art creates the conditions for people being open to the potential latent in the relationships around them. When we collectively start to notice emerging patterns and symbols, those pieces, as we were doing today, they become the source material. So I'm going to screen share. Oh, and this weird, it's just not looking like it's, let's hope it comes up. Okay. Okay, so for just a little over 10 years, I was the artist in residence at the Cabra Bay United Church. And it was a really sort of very progressive community of people that had been very involved in the truth and reconciliation process in Victoria, that was going on in Canada. And there were a number of story sharings processes that happened that were very, very deeply moving, and that people from this community had been and accompanied some of the Indigenous people who had gone through those traumatic experiences. And we, over many years, had hosted potlucks and ceremonies with some of the local Indigenous community. And it was at, I can't remember exactly, I think it was in about 2000, oh gosh, I can't remember, anyway, I can't remember when it was, sort of about 6-7 years ago. There was a whale called Telequa that had, a few hours after birth, the orca had died, baby orca. And the mother had basically kept this baby afloat for 17 days. And many people in and around the islands where we live had seen this whale. And it became this very, very symbolic piece that everyone was talking about. And when the mother whale finally let the baby go, oh, sorry, I'm just jumping into the story to tell you about this art piece. Maybe just excuse that. I'll just take a step back and just say I would produce an art piece every 8 months or so that would be something that would be at the front of the church sanctuary and kind of hold a collective part of what this community was holding. And so the piece that I produced incorporated the whale Telequa and the ceremony that was held with many of the Indigenous people who were involved in the community that we had been getting together with. And we formed a circle on the shore, and some of the Indigenous people led us through these songs to the whale. And there was just it was such a powerful experience, and of singing to the whale, and the sense that we were actually, there was this connection. And so bringing the symbol of the whale that no longer has her baby with her, and the circle that is of the people, was a very, very powerful symbol that people kept referring back to. And the other piece that I wanted to bring in was the mountain that you see here in the mountain range is a very prominent mountain that we look to. Many of you know Mount Baker. And, oh, sorry, I don't know why. Oh, it's just, gosh, put my hand on my mouse. Yeah, so just bringing in those symbols means that people feel that what they're seeing are symbols that are present in their own lives that are meaningful to them. So I'm just trying to figure out how to. So I'm going to invite Tila to share her example right now. And Tila, maybe you'll just say a little bit about your work and the project, the T-Horse project.
Hi, so I'm in Portland, Oregon, and we have City Repair, and City Repair we've been at work for about 27 years now, and the whole focus is facilitating community art for the sake of bringing community together. So we do intersection repairs where we paint big intersections. And we always say it's not about having your intersection painted, it's about bringing all your neighbors out to do something collectively that will remain as a symbol of community. But one of our biggest exciting projects that is a wonderful form of ephemeral art and community art is the T-Horse. And I am looking for my screen share here, but the T-Horse, am I sharing?
I can see your screen.
All right, I am trying to share the correct screen. I'm trying to figure out how to get out of screen share so I can go back to the one I'm trying to share, or I'll just drag it over here.
You can also use your back and forth arrow keys on your keyboard to change the slides.
Okay, is it showing? What's showing?
I see Tibetan prayer flags. It's like a little festival or.
Okay, so this is the T-Horse, and this is an ephemeral artwork that we take out into the community that goes from park to park, and it sets up, it's this beautiful mobile tea house. So our goal is to create, to put up this big art installation that's mobile, brings people together, and we do, we serve tea. People typically bring a lot of different treats, cookies, cakes, whatever, to share with each other. And it just brings people out into the community to gather and to create place and give people a sense of place and community. So it was out and about on roaming around Portland for about 12 years. Then it went into hibernation. And one of the important pieces to me about this is that every time we set it up, it takes a group effort. So when the T-Horse rolls into a park, all the people who come there for that sense of community work together to put the T-Horse up. And then at the end of the night, we work together to bring it down. So it's an opportunity for people to work together to create this beautiful temporary art experience. So it did get put into storage about 7 years ago and was not roaming the streets. And I had been gone from Portland for a number of years. And when I came back, I was like, where's our T-Horse? Where's our T-Horse? And a big piece of what came out of that was not only getting our T-Horse back out into the streets, but the process of bringing the community together to revitalize it, repaint it, repair it, and building amazing connections through that experience. And then it was absolutely amazing this spring for Imbolg, our Festival of Lights. We had the opportunity to relaunch our revitalized tea horse. And over the 4 days that we set up, just so many hundreds of people from the community showed up and just like, oh my gosh, I've missed this so much. This was such an important part of my childhood or my early youth, or so many ways that the tea horse impacted people's lives. And they just were just overflowing with joy and just having that brought back into their lives. It just seeing it took people right back to being in community and what it means to be part of a greater effort. So just sharing some fun photos from that. This is us setting up, actually serving tea out to people. And we will spend, we'll get so much use out of this beautiful tea horse this summer. We have probably about 40 or 50 outings already planned, just taking it out and bringing people together and reminding people that we're a community, because that's what it does. It really just brings people together. And it's art in such a beautiful, ephemeral way that I'm not an artist myself in the traditional sense. But for me, being able to collaborate and share this with people is, I'm just impressed I managed to talk about it without getting all teary-eyed, because it brings up a lot of emotion to be a part of something that is so impactful and changes people's lives every time we take it out. That's my favorite place to be in the whole world, is right there. So that's our tea horse. That's City Repair.
Thanks, Tila. Yeah, I'm really, the City Repair project, and there's tons to see about it, like the street art and painting and how the city can be transformed, has just been such an inspiring sort of ongoing project. Yeah, and so it was exciting to have Tila come and be able to share that part of it. Thank you.
So I'm not sure how to leave screen share.
I think at the top, I think you can, it says, there's like a red part that says stop screen share, or stop sharing. Just move to the top of your screen.
Barry, you're also sharing your screen next. If you do so, it will take it from
Kick me out.
Oh,
Yeah,
okay, all right.
That's
Oh,
another option.
I think I'm in full screen somehow. And
all right. So, yeah, so this next piece that I wanted to share, it's a 9-minute video. It won't quite take that long because I'm going to just cut it a bit shorter, but it's about a festival, and it speaks for itself. So I'm going to just let it play. Is everyone seeing it right now? Okay.
Yes. And we can hear it too.
Good.
Look at the procession. It's every age of person. At the very beginning, what we focused on was a chance to celebrate. We're all in this together. It's non-political. Just trying to ease it into the consciousness of the community. There's a lot lot of dodging the bullets at first, you know, that, hey, you're a pagan, you're doing a ritual. All of these different things kind of like showed up at us. Like, whoa. We had a 20-year plan, so I divided that into 4 5-year blocks. The first 5 years was called the year of the mask. The next 5 years were the year of the dance. The next 5 years, the year of the voice. The next 5 years, the year of the heart. First started doing stuff, everybody was into it. A lot of masks were being made because that's the image that everybody had. Yeah, of course, you make masks, you get it in the procession. This is what we're supposed to do. It's about Earth Day animals. But ultimately what happens is, after you're doing it, you say, well, you know, hey, I got my mask up, but no one knows it's me. And then the tendency is, well, you know, maybe I'm a little bit embarrassed, self-conscious. You know, I'm just here with my kids. It's a little kiddie thing. So we really put a big emphasis on music. When there is music, adults will be there. It's unpredictable. You don't know where the music's going to go. You're going to have to move in. So suddenly, adult men especially, and adult women, there's a place that they can go in these kind of community settings. There was movement, there was energy, it wasn't just sort of walking down the space, and that people had the opportunity to say, yeah, look at me, but not in the concepts of, look at me, I'm here, I've taken my mask off, but hey, look at the world around you. Isn't it beautiful? We started out making sure there was always a place. People come in, and no matter what your level of experience is, you're allowed to show up and learn.
The procession is so much more fun when there's a little drama involved, and there's some sort of little story that's happening. And so I thought it would be very fun to make an anteater giant puppet, and I could chase the leaf eater ants. This is will be the nose and the head, and there'll be a little eye and a little ear. So I put, please don't touch nervous mantis. The person who made the mantis is really the nervous person, but sort of living vicariously through the mantis.
Hot glue, duct tape, and PVC. This is the head. It's big and just about all cardboard and weighs about 5 pounds.
One of the most amazing things that ever happens is that the procession only has, like, for 30,000 people, it really only has, how many officers will be on duty? Maybe 8. Jim Parton here is the person. We hand out 7,000 pieces of street chalk every single year to the audience, and that exists because of Jim Parton right there.
School of Fish is kind of a nice metaphor for being part of a band, because it's not about the individual in a band.
It isn't about a matter of doing something and say, hey, man, it's all good. It takes work, it takes focus, and it also says, hey, is it possible? We provide a place for that when people express what they've just witnessed out of their creative spirit, when they want to share it, that there is a beautiful place for them to share it. something that we belong to, but also belongs to us.
Yeah, so, I need to share screen again. So yeah, so that was a really pretty inspiring example of bringing a lot of different elements together. I believe it's in, it's in Washington. Has anyone experienced the procession of the species or heard about it? Because to me, it's just so incredible that it's been going, because it's really, look at how long it's taken to develop it to that point, but actually just seeing it gives a spark of what's possible. And that's just another form of like a parade, bringing people out into the streets. So I have one last piece to share with you. And I'm just going to try and make this screen. So, so this is Ron Rice, who is, he's been the executive director for the Victoria Native Friendship Center. And he talked about the carving of a totem pole as one of the projects that they were doing at the Victoria Native Friendship Center, which is in a fairly urban part of Victoria. And the Native Friendship Center offers mostly service programs, help with people who've been living on reserves and being able to access services that they need, or getting skills that they need, or somehow interfacing with the system that isn't working for them. And something that's been pretty central to the success of any of those programs, as Ron tells it, is having something that that helps to bring some of their people's heritage and stories alive. And often it's taken the form of actually carving a totem pole. And so they've got several totem poles outside of the Native Friendship Center. This is the most recent one that's just been added. But the totem pole is used as a way of, it's part of, it embeds the stories that, as the stories are told, there is a sense that people are part of that, but also participating in the actual carving of it. So Kerry Newman here in the picture, he's a really, really amazing Indigenous artist who was the master carver and helped take people through the process of actually carving a traditional totem pole. And Ron, who was in the previous picture, talked about how they felt that they kept art at the center of everything that they did, because it was the thing that kept people feeling a sense of belonging. And I'm going to stop sharing now. It gave them a sense of belonging and was actually the reason why people stuck with the programs, because they had a sense that they were part of something bigger than themselves. And to me, it was such a powerful example of, that's exactly the kind of conversation I wish we were having more of, about how powerful the arts are and in what they can do. And one of the things Ron talks about is how much difficulty he would have in terms of funding, because the social service programs would say, yeah, we think you're doing an amazing job, keep doing it, but we don't fund art. So, you know, scratch that out of it. And they eventually decided not to go with any of the funding that was coming from anyone who wouldn't support that, because they felt it was so integral to the process of any of the success. So we've got some minutes left, and I just wondered if questions had come up, or if there was any comments or anything. And Benji, I don't know if you've got anything you would like to bring up.
I feel that this was a great start to the conversation. I think you did a great job, Claire. I really appreciate all that you put into it. And yeah, we've got 7 minutes left, which isn't really enough time to open up a whole new conversation. It will grow. I think people will feel cut off, but maybe what we could do instead is just do a closing, just do a round. We've got 15 people. And so we can go around and everyone can share for like 20 or 30 seconds. I know that'll probably end up growing too. It tends to. Share for 20 or 30 seconds, how you're feeling, how this is impacting you, whatever you want. We'll try to keep it to the bottom of the hour to wrap up anyways. But if we go over a little bit, I'll stick around for a couple minutes. Does anybody want to kick us off and then pass it along? It could be something really simple too. How you feeling?
Great, invigorated, inspired, and very appreciative of you, Claire, for your holding this space for so many years and the experience you bring. And I pass it on to RJ, who I haven't heard from for a bit.
I'm just thinking of South Side here and revitalization, how much that does bring a community back together. The luminaria too. Just light is wonderful. I'll pass that on to Elizabeth if she's there.
Yep, I'm here. Yeah, I was thinking that what came up in the film is that most of the artwork is about the process. And I think that bioregional regeneration is all about a process. It's sometimes not about the finished product. And that's why, and also, it's also about not the spoken word in many cases, apart from say music or poetry, and whole body expression. It's like this whole other world of use of our body, and just practicing that and just being in the process is enlivening, invigorating. Oh, and I'll pass it on to, I have to put my glasses on and see everybody. Let's go to Niels.
Thank you, Elizabeth. Yeah, got a lot of inspiration from all of you and from the sharing, the community art chairs. I mean, there's so much richness in that process, and I would love to explore more how I can bring it to, my communities and yeah, because it's so needed. And yeah, also just explore more how I can, combine bioregional learning with some artistic processes we talked about, Claire, yesterday. Yeah, so thank you very much, both. And I'll pass it on to Midi.
Thank you, Niels. Well, I was left hearing Claire's comments about funding, and then heard Elizabeth, which reminded me there's this kind of process of reflection going on in me, that my experience of community art predominantly is in the island of Corsica. And we put on amazing public performances and spectacles, and yet the funding came from within the community. And I think something Elizabeth said really touched me about it was the process of getting to the performance as much as the performance itself, and the process of everybody in the community contributing what they could in terms of the things, clothing, for materials, for costumes and so on, for community plays, the singing, which was just the their voices. There's something about a real depth of embodiment in that. I was blown away by your examples, Sheila and Claire. They're wonderful, and they're somehow, to me, they feel very Western as well. And I don't know what that is, what I'm feeling. I need to sit with that sense of difference. Thank you. What a really interesting. Yeah, thanks. And I will pass to Darren. Hello, Darren.
Hi, thanks. Yeah, feeling inspired. And yeah, I mean, I feel like that's one of the big like potential offerings of like community artwork is to inspire people. And yeah, just thinking about like the power of artwork. It's not something that I have been thinking about a lot, but yeah, I feel now like there is just a huge potential for community art to really give people a sense of belonging and to just kind of connect people with the land that they're from and with each other. And I'm also now thinking about like kind of the symbolic aspect of it, because I've been like reading about like ancient Egypt and how they were like really into like symbolism as a way to kind of connect to like basically kind of bypass like the rational kind of like dialectical like way of like communicating and just kind of really like tapping into like innate knowledge. And so I'm just thinking about like symbolism and how to incorporate that into art in a way that's like contextual to my own place where I'm living at. So yeah, I really appreciate it. And I'll pass it to Gail.
Thank you, Darren. Nice to meet you. I've been really inspired, but the last sentence you left us with, Claire, was maybe the one that encompasses all of it, and that is community art is for us to feel like we're part of something greater than ourselves. Yeah. And I loved what Elizabeth said about process. So true. I'm going to pass to Penny.
Thanks, Gail. Well, what I was noticing the intergenerational aspect. I was noticing all the kids and how it brought together kids and adults. And that seems really significant. And then just also the conviviality or the play, the fun aspect, bringing everybody together. And it's just making me really curious how to integrate this, into the bioregional conversation. Like when we come to an area and we're starting to talk about this, how do we integrate in the kids into this? And this is with the adults. Like this would be a great way to do that, to have something fun, to have like art, to have everybody in one place, and exploring this in different ways that kids can explore too. So that's what I'm reflecting on. It's like that connection feels so rich and deep and sort of like cultural, like the depth of culture. So that's what I'm reflecting on. Really beautiful. Thank you. I'll pass to Benji.
Oh, hey, thanks. Didn't see that coming. Yeah, what an opportunity we have to explore how community art can be woven into the bioregional activation process. If we're going to Sailor Sea next, and we'll be with Claire. That's really fun. Yeah, let's bring the kids too. I'll try to say this really succinctly. I think that, this bioregional learning process, this process of bioregional adaptation is such a creative process, and everybody who is participating in it is a creator. And I think that there's an opportunity, especially when looking at the spectrum of art that Claire brought in, from the mastery of a particular modality to community processes by meeting. And we can see, basically all I'm saying is we can all see ourselves as artists within this, within the bioregional process, coming together with community to create new meaning, and we can identify that way. And I think that's really exciting. Invite us into more creative modes all the time by seeing it that way. And I'll pass it over to Tiala. Are you the last to go? Chad hasn't gone either. Can you, if you don't mind raising your hand if you haven't gone yet? I've lost track. Megan as well. Okay. Tiala, over to you.
Tila, I'm just inspired. I see this is exploring ways that people who don't create art can still experience art. I have a lot of artistic aspects of me, but I don't create works of art. But being a part of an artistic experience, for me, the community art piece just is, like Elizabeth was saying, it's a process. And when we paint an intersection, we end up with beautiful artwork, but we end up with a community that has met one another. They know each other. They exchange phone numbers. They plan their next gathering. Some of these intersections, these simple community art projects have led to ongoing community gatherings for years, and the community knows each other. And with the Tea Horse, it creates this whole crew of people who just travel around Portland looking for it, just to experience that pleasure, that sense of belonging, that sense of contributing, because the piece of it where we all put it up together means so much to people. I had a woman help us recently set it up, and she was just amazed. She's like, wow, I want to be a part of this all the time. It was so amazing to be able to contribute, because she wasn't someone who usually is the tall, strong person or whatever, but every person's piece matters. And that's what I love about this style of community art. And I'll pass it on to Chad.
Okay, great. Yeah. I was in the library yesterday, and I just remember happening to see a book on the forgotten art of making a home, of homemaking. And that's what this is about for the community, right? It's a process. And it's one that makes a home for everybody. So yeah, it's a beautiful connection. Thank you. I guess Megan?
Yeah, thanks, Chad. Yeah, this was very inspiring. I love your examples, Claire. It's just, and one of the things that's been fun is I'm reflecting on, there's little bits of this in my neighborhood. We do some of these things on a small scale, but they don't always kind of last into kind of a community, ongoing community conversation. So I'm going to think about that. And I'm also thinking about how this is kind of adjacent to certain kinds of games that I've been interested in, create as a, creating games for people to kind of suspend, maybe suspend their stiffness and play together. And it seems like it's kind of adjacent to some of the community art as well. So I'm going to think about that more. So yeah, no, thank you. This is wonderful.
That does it.
Yeah,
Claire?
thank you so much.
Yeah.
And maybe again, I just put in one quick thing, and that is that at the Culture Center, we are talking about a learning journey where there may be a way of helping to facilitate more of this on the ground where people are. So I think just to stay posted.
Yeah, thank you.
And
for
Niels
that.
is the person you could speak to about more of that. So.
Okay. Well, thank you everyone for joining.
Thank you so much.
Tila, thanks for sharing.
Thank
Claire,
you,
great
especially
job.
Tila and Benji. Yeah.
And if anybody's interested in templates for creating community art projects, City Repair does have a lot of things that we hand out to the community on how to organize these things, because we get requests from all over the country and all over the world, and what we do is in Portland. But we're always happy to share tools to help facilitate that.
Great. Yeah. Thank you for adding that in. Yeah.
Thank you.
Wonderful to
Bye.
see everybody and grateful to be part of this amazing community.